Construction in New York has become really entwined with the legal process. Every year, there become more and more obligations on the contractor, more and more need to carefully review contracts. Contracts are becoming more complicated, more thorough, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. But for contractors who are used to maybe doing business what I'll call the old-fashioned way, where there's a handshake and you get paid and everything goes right, that's really not the way construction goes in New York anymore, certainly not for your more complex or bigger value projects. So there are some deadlines that every contractor should really know, and maybe more importantly, that every contractor's back office should know to make sure that they're not missing these crucial deadlines that are going to allow them to get paid, which at the end of the day, this is really what they're in the business for. They want to get paid for the work that they did. Of course, there could be other deadlines in your contract. You always want to make sure you carefully read your contract, because your contract is going to be the first place to look as to when certain things are due, whether there are deadlines, whether there are notice provisions. But outside of the contract, there are some other deadlines that really everyone in construction should know about. And I'm going to talk about 7 of them that I think are particularly important deadlines for a contractor in New York. The first is going to be related to mechanics liens. So there's various types of mechanics liens. First, if it's a public project, if you're doing work for a public entity in the state of New York, you must file a mechanics lien on that public project no later than 30 days from the time that the project is completed and accepted by the public entity. This is a hard deadline. If you miss that 30-day window, you have lost your lien rights. Now, if it is a private residential project, single-family home, then your lien is due within 4 months of the date that you last provided labor or materials to the project. If it's a commercial project, your lien is due 8 months from the time that you last provided labor and materials to the project. So those are your lien deadlines in New York. Public project, 30 days from the time that the project is completed and accepted by the public entity. It has nothing to do with when you last performed work. Private project is going to be 4 months on a residential project from when you last performed, and it's going to be 8 months on any other project from when you last performed. And then we have a payment bond claim. Now, not every project in New York is going to have a payment bond, but if it does, you certainly don't want to miss the deadlines that are related to that. This is in particular for projects that are not federal projects. This is other projects, whether it is a public project or even a private project in New York. And it can vary by project, it can vary by the surety. But typically, your bond claim must be submitted within 60 to 90 days of the time that the claim comes into existence. If the payment bond terms aren't known, you should always try and submit it no more than 60 days after the claim is due. You want to put everybody on notice. Best policy is going to be get a copy of the bond for the project. Make sure you comply with the provisions of that bond as to notice when it is required and where it must go. Now, if you're working on a federal project, you're going to be covered by the Miller Act for a bond claim. If your contract is directly with the prime contractor for that project, you must file suit within 1 year of the time that you last provided labor or materials to the project. If your contract is with someone other than the prime contractor, then in addition to filing suit within 1 year, you must also provide notice of non-payment and your bond claim to the prime contractor within 90 days of the last date that you provided labor or materials to the project. Now, a couple of other important deadlines. We've talked about liens, we've talked about bond claims. Now we're going to talk about your potential protection that is afforded under Article 3A of the lien law. First is your demand for a verified statement. This is Section 76 of the lien law. If you are a beneficiary of a trust, meaning you are somebody who is owed money on a construction project, once you have been owed money for more than 30 days, you may serve a demand upon the trustee, that's the person who hired you and owes you the money, and demand that they provide all of the information required by Article 3A of the lien law, basically show you how much money they have received and what they have done with that money. As trustees of the money, it is not yet theirs. They have to pay you first if you're a beneficiary. So you want to be able to look at those books and records and make sure they're not doing things with the money that they shouldn't be before they pay you. And If you think they have, or if you know they have because you've received a response to the Section 76 demand, then the other deadline you don't want to miss is to commence your claim for a trust fund diversion. In general, it has to be commenced within 1 year of the time that the project was completed. So you don't want to miss any of these deadlines. They're all relatively short in the lifespan of a construction project. To learn more about claims in construction and making sure you get paid, visit www.nyconstructionlaw.com.